For nearly 4 decades, the Saab JAS-39 Gripen was a ghost in modern air power, sleek, efficient, respected, but untested. Since its first flight in 1988, experts kept asking, could this Scandinavian lightweight ever survive real combat, or was it just a cheaper alternative to the F-35 and Su-35? That question was finally answered in July 2025. During a brief but fierce border war between Thailand and Cambodia, the Gripen saw combat for the first time. For 5 days, Thai pilots flew precision strike missions, hitting artillery targets with laser-guided bombs, clean, fast, flawless. In a single week, the Gripen went from unproven export fighter to combat-proven NATO weapon. And its success sent a chill through every defense ministry that once ignored it. Because Sweden is no longer neutral, it's a NATO member, and the Gripen has just announced that Sweden has entered the big leagues of modern warfare. Sweden's quiet neutrality is gone. In less than 2 years, it's transformed from observer to operator, a nation now at the sharp tip of NATO's spear. Since joining the alliance in March 2024, Sweden has stunned the world, deploying warships, troops, and nearly a quarter of its air fleet to NATO missions. Analysts expected hesitation. Instead, Sweden went all in. Defense spending soared to 3% of GDP. New drone defense systems rolled out, and Swedish jets began intercepting Russian planes over the Baltic Sea. Then came the Gripen's combat debut, proof that Sweden isn't just participating in NATO, it's leading. Because what NATO quietly feared wasn't Swedish weakness. It was Swedish strength, growing too fast, too capable, too independent. In just 18 months, Stockholm has become a military disruptor. The Gripen's success has sparked global aftershocks. Colombia, the Philippines, even Ukraine are now eyeing the jet that outperformed expectations in real war. Russia's Baltic dominance looks shakier than ever, and some NATO members are questioning whether they overpaid for the F-35 dream. The question isn't, can the Gripen fight? That's already answered, over Cambodian skies. The question now is, what happens when NATO's budget fighter becomes its frontline warplane, staring straight at Russia's border? The age of neutrality is over. The age of the Gripen has begun. For decades, Sweden mastered the art of staying invisible. A nation of diplomacy, trade, and quiet self-defense, living safely in the shadows of great powers. But that world ended when Russia invaded Ukraine. When Finland applied for NATO membership in 2022, Stockholm realized isolation was no longer an option. The Baltic balance had shattered. And by March 2024, Sweden officially joined NATO, a move that quietly reshaped Northern Europe's security map overnight. On paper, it looked like a simple signature. In reality, it was the most dramatic shift since the Cold War. NATO didn't just gain a new member, it gained a strategic coastline, access to the Arctic, and a partner ready to act, not just talk. By September 2024, Sweden had already committed 1,200 troops, 6 warships, and 24 Gripen fighters, nearly a quarter of its entire air force, to NATO operations. That's not cautious diplomacy. That's determination to be indispensable. Once content to train in isolation, Sweden's forces now operate under NATO command. Its Gripens deployed to Polish runways, its warships patrolling the Baltic, and its Arctic troops training alongside Norwegians, Finns, and Americans in the planet's harshest conditions. Behind it all stands a defense budget roaring louder than words. Proof that Sweden's neutrality is not just gone, it's been replaced by resolve. Sweden is no longer playing it safe. The country now spends 2.8% of its GDP on defense, already surpassing NATO's 2% benchmark, on track to hit 3.1% by 2028, rivaling the US and Poland. Neutrality has been replaced by militarization, and Sweden isn't apologizing. For decades, Moscow relied on Swedish neutrality as a strategic buffer in the Baltic, a silent gap in NATO's armor. That gap is gone. With Sweden inside NATO, Russia's northern advantage has vanished. The Baltic Sea is now a NATO lake. Swedish warships guard the sea lanes, and Gripen jets patrol skies once dominated by Russian Su-35s and bombers. In under 2 years, Sweden has become NATO's forward edge, the new face of deterrence in Northern Europe. But one question lingered. Could the Gripen, Sweden's pride and joy, actually fight? For all its reputation, cheaper than the F-35, less imposing than the Su-35, but beloved by pilots, it had never fired a shot in anger. And in the world of air power, credibility begins only when the first missile is launched and the first jet returns with battle scars. That moment came in July 2025, not in Europe, but thousands of miles away on the Thailand-Cambodia border. When artillery fire erupted near Humakua Ridge, Thai commanders made a historic call: deploy the Gripen CD fleet, purchased from Sweden but never tested in war. For 5 relentless days, from July 24th to 28th, the skies erupted. Thai Gripens flew precision strikes against hardened Cambodian artillery, laser-guided bombs, flawless coordination, 0 losses. When the dust settled, the Gripen had done what skeptics said it never would: turned theory into victory. The fighter's first combat mission wasn't just Cambodia's loss, it was the world's awakening. Because in those 5 days, a jet once called the budget alternative became a combat-proven NATO weapon, and the global balance of air power quietly shifted. In a single operation, the world saw the difference. A Cambodian artillery battery obliterated in minutes. Its guns silenced before they could fire again. The Gripen didn't just strike, it executed with precision and endurance, operating flawlessly in the punishing humidity and dense terrain of Southeast Asia. This wasn't another air raid. This was a baptism by fire, 37 years in the making. From theory to reality, the Gripen's first kill turned it overnight from an export experiment into a combat-proven predator. Military credibility is ruthless. Jets that dazzle in air shows often crumble in chaos. But the Gripen cleared that bar on its very first mission, and the world took notice. When the ceasefire came on July 28, 2025, Cambodia pulled back, Thailand claimed victory, and the Gripen returned home not as a test aircraft, but as a veteran of war. And every air force from Colombia to the Philippines suddenly saw the same headline: "This jet works." For Russia, the warning was louder still. Gripens now guard the Baltic, right on its doorstep. Underestimating Sweden's fighter just became a deadly mistake. But the biggest impact wasn't in Asia, it was in Europe. Inside NATO command rooms, the Gripen's debut landed like a thunderclap. A fighter once dismissed as second tier had proven it could fight and win. Sweden's rapid militarization no longer looked theoretical, it looked real. By March 2025, Swedish Gripens were already flying from Polish runways, patrolling the Baltic skies under NATO command, intercepting Russian aircraft, testing readiness, proving capability. Sweden had completed its transformation, from neutral observer to frontline enforcer. For Moscow, this is the nightmare they always feared. For NATO, it's a new era, sharper, faster, more dangerous. The age of Swedish neutrality is over. The age of the Gripen has begun. In September 2025, the Baltic skies erupted with tension. Swedish Gripen fighters and German Eurofighters intercepted a Russian Il-20M reconnaissance plane that violated NATO airspace. Moscow raged, but the message was unmistakable. The Baltic skies were no longer Russia's playground. Sweden, once neutral and cautious, has transformed into NATO's northern spearhead. 6 advanced warships now patrol the Baltic, sealing maritime choke points vital to Russia's access routes. New surveillance laws empower Sweden's Coast Guard to monitor undersea cables and airspace. The Baltic Gray Zone has become a NATO stronghold. Then came the shock. Sweden deployed its Loki counter-drone system to NATO bases in Poland, from prototype to battlefield in just 84 days. This cutting-edge tech can jam and destroy Russian swarm drones, neutralizing one of Moscow's key advantages. Overnight, NATO gained a technological edge in drone warfare. But what truly sent shockwaves through Moscow wasn't a missile, it was a rumor. In September, Ukraine's deputy defense minister hinted that Swedish Gripens might soon head east. Even without confirmation, the psychological effect was devastating. Russian planners were forced to rethink air defenses, troop positions, and strategy. Sweden's defense minister quickly clarified, no deal yet. Still, Stockholm had already approved $214 million in Gripen parts for Ukraine. That's not a promise, it's a message. Sweden is preparing for a future where its jets guard Ukrainian skies. NATO generals now call Sweden a force multiplier. With Gripens in the air, Sweden has turned the Baltic from a Russian risk zone into a NATO fortress. Its defense budget now exceeds 2.8% of GDP and is rising. Proof that Stockholm is no longer a silent observer, but a leading architect of Europe's northern defense. In just 2 years, Sweden's Gripen has evolved from a quiet export fighter to a symbol of resistance, speed, and innovation. Moscow's fear is no longer about what Sweden might do today, but what it's preparing to do next. Sweden's industrial and defense transformation isn't just about production, it's about influence. The Gripen's success proves that smaller, innovative nations can punch above their weight, challenging the assumption that military supremacy is only about budget or size. Precision, adaptability, and foresight have become Sweden's signature. For Russia, this is a nightmare. Gripens now patrol NATO airspace, backed by a rapid, technologically advanced defense sector capable of sustaining operations, upgrading systems, and outpacing larger powers. Any lightly defended zone in Europe is no longer safe. The Baltic and Arctic choke points are front lines Sweden can control. Integration with NATO amplifies this impact. Gripens operate alongside F-35s, Eurofighters, and NATO naval assets coordinated under unified command. Even the potential for future Gripen deployment to Ukraine forces Moscow to rethink force ratios and air defense positioning, a strategic chess move without firing a single shot. The Gripen's combat debut in Thailand proved the jet is lethal and precise. Sweden has leveraged this experience, along with warships, drones, and surveillance systems, to rewrite regional power dynamics. The Baltic is now a fortified front line. The Arctic is contested. Sweden's Gripens represent a multi-dimensional threat, air, sea, and electronic warfare combined. The broader lesson is clear: size isn't everything. Integration, innovation, and execution matter most. Sweden has turned a relatively small population and defense budget into a concentrated punch NATO and rivals cannot ignore. The Gripen is more than a fighter. It is the symbol of Sweden's strategic rise, the engine of NATO's northern defense, and a game-changer for European security. The age of the Gripen has begun. Northern Europe will never look the same again. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe ViperJet Wings for more deep dives into geopolitics and military strategy, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.